anyone was truly concerned, you can call me, and no one has. So when you sit here on your soapbox and try to say, I'm not getting through to you, no, you're not gonna get through to me, because if you really wanted to, you could have a one-on-one and call me. So let's not play the theatrics, because I'm not here for that shit.
Wendy Osefo was the picture of achievement. Well-educated, confident, and polished. On television, she came across as a woman who had earned her place. Her degrees, her speaking engagements, and her public roles painted her as the intellectual reality star, a person viewers could respect, even if they didn't always like her. But recent headlines pulled that image apart. Arrests, fraud-related charges, and questions about the truth behind a high-profile insurance claim forced people to ask, who is the person behind the carefully curated image?
Crater Face said that,
you know what, Wendy? You got one more time.
Imagine a woman throwing a drink on another woman for not calling a man.
No.
What type of woman does that? Look at you. Look at the CEO. Oh, look at the CEO. Look at the CEO. Oh, look at the CEO. That's why you getting up, you gonna throw another.
Well, in Maryland, what the hell?
Like, you embarrassed yourself. You embarrassed your whole business.
This script is not meant to tear someone down for the sake of drama. Instead, it's a careful look at how power and fame can warp judgment, how public lives mask private choices, and how a fall from grace can teach lessons about accountability, pride, and the cost of trying to protect an image at all costs. Wendy's backstory reads like the American dream in brief: a child of immigrants who valued education, a student who worked hard, and an adult who used knowledge to climb. She earned advanced degrees and built a career as a political commentator, professor, and speaker. These roles gave her credibility. She was not simply entertaining viewers, she had credentials to back up her opinions. On The Real Housewives of Potomac, Wendy leaned into that credibility. She positioned herself as the thoughtful, measured voice in the room, the one who quoted facts, corrected misinformation, and framed arguments with academic language. For many viewers, that was refreshing. It offered a contrast to the show's more volatile personalities. Her public image relied heavily on the idea that education equals authority, and authority commands respect. Her career success also opened doors. Media appearances, university posts, and speaking events turned her into a recognizable public figure. That visibility brought both admiration and scrutiny. The admiration came from people who saw in her a role model, someone from a humble or hardworking background who reached professional heights. The scrutiny came from a natural result of fame. The more public your life becomes, the more closely people inspect every action. Image matters in public life. Wendy's brand was built on intellect and class. She spoke with a calm tone, used policy knowledge, and framed critiques in ways that made her sound measured. This built trust for many, but public image is also fragile. When someone trades mostly on their reputation for honesty and expertise, evidence that contradicts that reputation can be especially damaging. The higher people set the pedestal, the harder the fall. In Wendy's case, the authority she cultivated meant that allegations of dishonesty would not be taken as simple gossip. They cut to the heart of her public promise. She represented facts and trustworthiness. That built-in tension between the image a person cultivates and the messy reality that may exist behind closed doors is important. It explains why people react so strongly to stories of betrayal or fraud when they involve those who have presented themselves as moral guides or teachers.
The Real Housewives of Potomac, Wendy Osefo, is the fiery academic.
I quit grading, but I'm still passing judgments.
But this morning, the reality television star and her husband are preparing to defend themselves against fraud charges. The couple accused of faking a burglary at their Maryland home so they could collect insurance money.
This place is a constant reminder of all of the accomplishments my husband and I have.
Though the Osefos flaunt their wealth on TV and online, investigators say they're steeped in debt and reported to police they were robbed while on a trip to Jamaica last year, claiming they found their bedroom and both closets to be ransacked and several designer handbags and jewelry had been stolen. Authorities were immediately suspicious.
The incident that set the legal process in motion was a reported burglary. The story was headline-ready. A wealthy couple returns from vacation to find closets ransacked, designer items missing, and a home violated. On the surface, it was the kind of trauma that generates sympathy. But investigators noticed inconsistencies. Details that should have been simple to reconcile instead created questions. The home security footage reportedly showed no motion. Some entrances to the home were awkward for an intruder to use. Items listed in insurance claims were allegedly handled in ways that didn't match a sudden theft, including evidence that some goods had already been returned for refunds or were photographed later on social media. Those facts raised a basic investigative question. Did the sequence of events happen as reported, or were some claims altered or added after the fact? Allegations also included language suggesting coordination, messages about adding high-value items to match an insurance threshold. Whether that message meant fraud or simple miscommunication is ultimately for courts to determine. But the presence of such messages is enough to change public perception and to justify a deeper look by law enforcement.
No evidence indicated that anyone attempted to enter the house.
Police say the Osefos claim thieves stole 80 items, including jewelry, clothing, and shoes valued at more than $200,000. But court records say some of those things had been returned for refunds, including a $1,500 Dior shirt and a $1,000 Gucci wallet. And prosecutors say a search of the Osefos' home turned up at least 15 items that appear to be the same ones claimed stolen during the alleged burglary. A gold diamond anniversary band, they say, Wendy Osefo later wore in a social media post.
Diamond wedding band that they observed in a social media post that is when they started realizing that this was likely a fabricated burglary.
When public figures face legal scrutiny, the record matters. Investigators methodically look at surveillance footage, receipts, social media timestamps, emails, and insurance documentation. Any mismatch or contradictory timestamp becomes especially important because it can show intent, planning, or fabrication. In this situation, reports indicated several of those mismatches. Social media images taken after the burglary date showing items still worn, store refund records dated before the theft claim, and security logs with no activity near the alleged time all suggested that investigators had reasons to look harder. In addition, the alleged email or message about increasing the total value of claimed items to reach policy limits is the sort of direct evidence prosecutors use to support an intent to defraud claim. It's critical to remember that investigators and the media are doing different jobs. Police and prosecutors gather evidence to build a legal case. Journalists report on both public records and what they can confirm through sources. Public records and court filings are the most reliable windows into the truth because they contain sworn statements, documented timelines, and exhibits. For anyone following a high-profile case, looking at the primary documents, police reports, indictments, and court motions provides the clearest picture. Once formal charges arrive, consequences extend beyond the courtroom. Wendy faced criminal counts that, if proven, carry serious penalties. But consequences are also reputational and professional. Institutions that previously associated with a public figure, universities, networks, sponsors, often move to distance themselves when a case becomes publicly charged. In Wendy's case, reports of resignations and professional pauses followed the charges. Employers and partners often act to protect their institutions. That can mean temporary leaves, resignations, or contract pauses. For the person at the center, those moves are career setbacks that may have lasting effects. Rebuilding a professional life after criminal charges, even if they are later dismissed, can be exceedingly difficult. Legal defense is another factor. Fighting charges takes time, money, and emotional energy. It also forces private matters into public courtrooms. For someone whose career depends on reputation, public court battles magnify damage beyond the legal risk. Because every hearing is a headline. Why might someone risk reputation for dubious choices? The simple answers often point to pressure and ambition. Fame creates incentives to maintain a certain lifestyle and image. Public figures face expectations from fans, producers, and their own inner circles. When lifestyle costs rise, or when income is linked to appearance, people may feel pushed to protect the brand by any means. This is not a justification, but a context. Ambition can be healthy, but it can also blind someone to ethical lines. In the scramble to appear successful and secure, gray decisions can escalate. Small deceptions can grow into larger schemes when the person involved believes their public image depends on it. These dynamics help explain, not excuse, why some people make unwise and sometimes illegal choices. Public reaction to scandals is predictable yet revealing. Some fans rally to defend, citing loyalty or a belief in innocence until proven guilty. Others feel betrayed and move quickly from admiration to anger. The media, naturally, amplifies both reactions. Tabloid coverage and serious journalism sit side by side, creating an emotional roller coaster for anyone watching. Social media accelerates this process. Every claim, court date, and rumor multiplies quickly online. That can distort public understanding because short posts rarely provide full context. For the accused, the court of public opinion can be harsher than the legal court. That's why many legal teams try to control the narrative through strategic statements, while critics dig into any available detail to make a case of guilt. The role of the audience should not be overlooked. The way the public reacts to a fall from grace often reflects broader cultural values. Do we forgive mistakes? Do we expect high moral standards from public figures? And do we separate private failings from professional contributions? Behind headlines and filings are people coping with stress. Families of accused individuals face real emotional strain. The fear of criminal penalties, financial ruin, and public humiliation is intense. In many cases, those close to the accused may react with denial, anger, or an attempt to justify behavior. That human dimension complicates the story because it introduces motivations that are not purely legal or financial. For Wendy and her family, the press attention is likely painful and destabilizing. Even when people cause harm, they are still human beings with relationships and vulnerabilities. That's not an argument for excusing wrongdoing. Rather, it reminds us that scandal affects more than one person and that human complexity resists easy moralizing. What can others learn from this situation? First, power and visibility do not shield people from accountability. In fact, public figures may face faster and harsher consequences because their actions have greater ripple effects. Second, transparency matters. When incidents happen, consistent and honest communication is usually better than evasive or polished statements that later fall apart under scrutiny. If someone in the public eye wants to repair a reputation after legal trouble, steps often include full cooperation with legal processes, honest public statements, making amends where appropriate, and meaningful work that rebuilds trust over time. Reputation repair is slow and demands consistent actions, not just words. Finally, this case should remind audiences to demand better systems of oversight in industries that reward image over substance. When celebrity and credibility are closely linked, incentives to maintain a false front can grow. Media literacy and critical thinking are useful shields. Demand evidence, consult primary documents when possible, and withhold final judgment until facts are established. When women in reality TV fall, the backlash often goes beyond the facts. In Wendy Osefo's case, her brand of intellect and class made the scandal hit harder. Critics called her too proud or fake academic, while supporters argued she faced harsher judgment because of her background. Media outlets turned her case into a story about greed and status, focusing on designer labels and luxury rather than context. That framing exaggerated her dark side, as if her entire image had been an act. But much of that darkness reflects society's obsession with tearing down successful women. Fame rarely offers fairness, and public punishment often lasts longer than the crime itself. Wendy's legal battle is still unfolding, but her next steps matter more than the verdict. Scandal doesn't have to end a career. It can reshape one. Real redemption will require honesty and humility, not scripted apologies. For years, Wendy's identity was tied to her titles: doctor, professor, commentator. True reinvention may mean stepping beyond those labels and rebuilding from sincerity. If she owns her mistakes and learns from them, she could still turn her story into one of growth and integrity. In the end, the dark side of Wendy Osefo isn't just about fame or failure. It's about the cost of image, the test of character, and the chance for a second act built on truth instead of perfection. The drama around Wendy Osefo is more than a gossip story. It's a case study in how public life, ambition, and ethical choices collide. It shows how carefully constructed images can hide messy realities, how legal systems step in when alleged wrongdoing crosses into criminal territory, and how reputations built over years can unravel quickly. Most importantly, it highlights a broader cultural lesson. When society elevates people for their appearance of virtue, it must also be ready to examine evidence and hold people accountable when they betray that trust. That means thorough reporting, careful legal review, and a public willing to look beyond the spectacle to the facts. This is not a final verdict. It is an exploration, an attempt to explain how a rise can lead to a fall, how fame reshapes choices, and how the consequences of those choices ripple outward. If nothing else, the story asks each of us to consider how we measure success, how we react when role models fail, and what we expect of the leaders we choose to admire.